Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Jami Kaeb. Looking forward to our conversation today, Jamie.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Simon.
So, Jamie is, I don't know how you find time to do this, Jamie. She's got eight kids and she runs a ministry as well called the Forgotten Industry. So thank you for making time. But that is a lot on your hands, right? That is a lot on your
Yeah,
hands.
that
Yeah,
is true.
yeah,
That is true.
that is true. So there's eight kids, and if I remember rightly, are five of them adopted? Is that right?
That's right.
That's
Yep.
right.
We have three biological. Kind of the age range is a little bit unusual for us.
Yeah,
23 is our oldest. She is biological, and then we have a 21 year old biological daughter. And then they kind of stair step from there. We've adopted internationally and through the foster care system after we were foster parents for a season. They go 19, 19, 18, 16, 14. And then my husband and I had the biggest surprise of our life last year and had another biological
right.
child who is now one.
Yeah, that's quite a spread there. Quite a spread.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, thriving. What does thriving mean to you, Jamie?
Mm, it's a great question. I think that thriving, when I think of it is when I feel like kind of when I feel grounded
Yeah,
and when I just know that I guess it's not always about feelings, but when I know that I'm doing what I need to be doing, what I'm called to be doing, and when I'm feeling very connected. For me, I'm a believer, a Christian. And so when I'm really connected to the Lord and when I'm spending time in His Word and when I'm walking in faithfulness. I feel like there's this, I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be. So it's not always like everything is great around me, but I have a sense of groundedness in I'm able to control the things I can control and I'm able to release the things that I need to release.
yeah. So, like deeper than feelings, then, like more
Yeah. Yeah.
foundational.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
kind of when I mean grounded, it's not so much like that, oh, I don't feel anxious or I don't feel this, but it's more like I'm settled in, again, as a person of faith, I can trust the one who controls it all and who has created me and has created this world. And so I can trust that he knows best. And so when the circumstances are hard, because, when you have a lot of kids, life in general, things aren't always just going smoothly, right? And you have different concerns on your heart. And yet there are times when I can get really focused in on all the things that are going wrong. And I get more anxious and I get more uptight and I try to control. But when I kind of can just settle and say, okay, I'm going to do the things I can do, I'm going to pray and I'm going to trust. To me, that's when I'm thriving whether or not the circumstances are nuts.
right. So it's more internally,
Yeah,
internally. Well, you said grounded, centered,
yeah,
at peace at peace with the chaos, kind
yeah,
of
absolutely, yeah. And I
the
think for me, a big thing is like not trying to control. Like whenever I try to control as a parent, five of my children are 18 and above, and so they're adults, and I don't get to tell them what to do anymore, right? I can be a coach, and fortunately, they have invited me and my husband in to be a coach for them, but they get to control. And I think as they're teenagers and adults, you recognize so much more how little control you actually have. When they're little, like my baby, I actually have to control everything for him. But as our kids get older, we start to think, I still need to control everything. And what I have found is when I try to control my kids, it removes connection. We get more disconnected and it's not a good thing. It's not my job to control them. It's my job to love
yeah,
them and guide them and teach them, but it's not my job to control them.
yeah. Is that a hard one lesson? Has that been tough learning that,
Oh
or did it?
yeah. Oh yeah. And it's a lesson I still have to learn. It's one of those where but I can literally feel it in my body when I am trying to, when I'm just trying to essentially play God, when I'm trying to put all the pieces in place and like, oh, they got to be here and they got to do this and it's like I am not grounded in, I get more anxious, I get more, yeah, I mean, it's just, I feel it in my body. So it's hard, it's a hard fought lesson, but when I do it right and when I like settle, it's just much better. There's freedom and I can enjoy my kids and I can enjoy my life and I can just rest. It's just a rest that I can experience.
Yeah. Is it is it like a tension that you feel in your body when you're trying to control it, or
For sure. For
is
sure.
that the kind of
Yeah,
is that like your early warning system that some things?
totally. Yeah, because and what happens is it's a fear-based thing. Usually when I'm trying to control, it's because I'm like, if they do this, it's going to go bad. Or if, or it sometimes could just be a like, I have hopes and dreams for them, right? That are often good,
Yeah,
but if they're not they have to learn on their own too, and but yeah, it is an early warning sign when I start getting more like uptight, intense, and I can just see it in our relationship. I see the difference in our relationship when I'm trying to like tell them, when I'm speaking out of a place of fear versus out of a place of, can I encourage you in something? Let's talk about this. Let's have a conversation.
yeah. So when did you start to get wise to this?
It's a great question. I mean, I think there's a key point that I actually go back to that I remember a moment with one of my kids who was struggling a lot with panic attacks. And I remember one specific time she was having a bad panic attack that was going on and on and on. And in that moment, I was so desperately trying to fix the situation because it's horrible. It's horrible to watch someone go through a panic attack. And I was trying like distract her, do this, do that, like just make it stop. And it wasn't working. Nothing was working. And at this point, it was like late in the night. And she is a teenager at this point. And it's late in the night, and I'm exhausted. She's exhausted, but nothing I'm doing is helping. And I'm completely depleted myself, my resources, myself. So I go into my bedroom to wake up my husband and say, hey, can you take over? Because she needs us, I think. But I have nothing more to give. And my husband, it didn't feel wise at the time, but it was very wise. But he said, no, I think she needs to be right now. I think that you need to go to bed and let it be. And I think that we just need to let her be right now. And it was incredibly scary for me because I thought, what if that's the total wrong decision? What if she hurts herself, or what if something horrible happens, or but she needs me, all these things of like, but I did because I listened to him because one, he's wise, and also two, I was exhausted. I remember falling into bed and just praying like, Lord, will you please protect her? Will you please help her? Um, and my daughter is also a Christian, and so in what I learned through this is I asked the Lord, will you please wake me up if she needs me? And around maybe 1, 2, 3 in the morning, I can't remember, but later in the morning, she came into my room. She was calm. She woke me up and said, Mom, can I talk to you? And I was like, absolutely. I walked back with her into her room and she shows me her journal. And she has been journaling and praying to the Lord to help her. And in that time, when I was off in my own room, she was alone with the Lord. He calmed her, He helped her, He gave her perspective that she needed. And what I learned through that experience is that I was actually the barrier between her and her father, her heavenly father, who actually created her and knows how to help her better than I do. But because I was there and trying to fix it all and distract her and do all this thing, it she didn't have she needed that time to feel the need and to
Yeah.
go to God.
Well, she was trying to control her panic, and you were trying to control your panic, and neither of you was.
Right. We were not being successful.
not being
And
successful.
I had to release her, and she had to release herself too. And God met her there. And it just taught me something really profound that sometimes, as parents, in our effort to help, we actually hinder because we're trying so hard to like fix everything for them that we're not giving them a chance to learn in the way that they need to learn.
Yeah. So if we, rather than asking about you and your definition of thriving, if we extend it to thriving adoptees, what does thriving adoptees mean
Mm.
to you, Jamie?
Well, I'm not an adoptee, so I'm just going to put that out there.
Of course.
But I do have children I have adopted.
Yeah.
My hope for all my kids who are adopted is that they will feel such a sense of belonging and safety that they know that they belong in my family. And this would extend to any adoptee in their family. But we have biological kids, right? So I want my kids to know that they are entirely as much a part of our family as the children that we birth, that I birthed. There is that God has ordained our family to look the way it does. And so I want them just to feel confident that nothing they do or don't do is going to change their how much I love them, that they're mine, that they're my kid, that they're a Kaeb. You know, that to me is against, I guess it goes back to that same kind of groundedness in like they are safe and secure. That's what I would say.
Yeah. So, I mean, the metaphor that pops into my head was rooted, right? A tree
Mm,
with strong,
yeah, yeah,
strong roots.
yeah. Like when the stress comes, when the winds blow, it's not, it's not uprooting them at their core. It's like, oh yeah, we're in a hard season, and we have hard seasons with every one of our kids, right? I mean, it's just like we're human, all of us. Family is messy, and so it. But that doesn't change that we are family. When my kids were little, I would always have these little sayings. And one of them was we would hold hands and we'd walk around. I remember being in a pool one time. We'd walk around and we'd say, "We don't let go no matter what. We don't let go no matter what. We are family." And I just carry all my little kids, we'd all be hand in hand in hand. And I'd just be like charging, doing the march, "We don't let go no matter what." And they'd repeat it, and but I just wanted to, my heart for my kids always has been, I don't ever want any one of them, especially with having a lot, to feel just like a number or just like invisible. I want every one of them to feel seen and known and cared for. And to the best of my ability, we do that. I know that I'm not enough to be their everything, which is something I've had to learn as well. But I do pray that they feel seen and cared for and known and rooted in our family.
Yeah. We hear this phrase quite a lot. Kids do what we do, not what we say.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, um, I'm guessing that the grounded metaphor, the grounded word, is the same for you and your kids because of that, because it's about modeling. I mean, is that
Mm. Yeah. I mean, I hope so. And what I do feel thankful for is we do have, we're connected to our kids. Like they talk to us. They want to be with us, like it's so interesting how as they've gotten older and like have gone off to college or one has gotten married, like they really have valued our opinions and wanted to hear from us. And everyone's a little bit different in how much they want and all that, but I have just been so grateful that we really do just enjoy being together as a family in general.
yeah? So connected, belonging, grounded,
Grounded. Hmm.
all kind of sound like words of strength. Is it? Is that what
Mm.
it's about?
Yeah, I mean, I just think yeah, I think it's this confidence in knowing who you are and whose you are. where you belong, like why you matter, that kind of thing. And those are core human needs. And we all struggle with that in different ways, right? Like we all have our insecurities and we all, but I think the more that, and that's why for me, like I feel so very deeply and believe so at the core that my worth is in Christ. And because he created me and he says who I am, that means I have worth and value. And I believe that about every human. Every human is made in the image of God. And I, so when I feel insecure or when I start to try to put my identity in, am I a good leader at the Forgotten Initiative? Or am I a good mom? Or am I a good wife? Or am I a good friend? And I start to see, wow, I'm not as good as I want to be, like I want to do better here. I wish I could do this. But when I start focusing on me so much, that again is when I start to get the anxiousness and or I start to maybe try to prove myself, or I, get real insecure and don't do the things I need to do. Like whenever I get off on who I am and whose I am, things don't go as well.
Yeah. So how how's it been sharing this with your kids?
I mean, I think it's just over the course of all of our years, I don't know that it's like one conversation or just sitting down, but I think for me it's one way I try to make them feel seen is every day when they come up, and now many of my kids don't even live in my house anymore, but one of the things I tried to do was a very simple. When I'd see them, I'd say, "Good morning, Bobby," use their name, or look in their eyes. "Hey, Friday, how you doing? How did you sleep, Layla?" Just acknowledging them. It's a very simple thing, but just letting them know I see you. I often will tell my kids, I just really like you. I really am so glad you're mine. Did you know I'm so glad? Like when they were little, especially, but I do it still to this day. But man, I'm so glad God allowed you and me to be in the same family. I'm so glad God brought us together. Um, I think it's also just having real conversations. Like when I mess up, when I realize I've been controlling and I spoke to you in a way that was disrespectful or unkind, or when I assumed things about you that maybe were untrue, apologizing. Say I messed up. I tell my kids all the time, we don't ever expect you to be perfect, but we do really expect honesty. And we need you to be honest and open with us. So I'm trying to model an openness of vulnerability and honesty. And then when they are open and vulnerable and honest, I'm affirming that. Like, thank you so much. I know that was hard to share. Um, and then when they don't, it's a reminder. Again, we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for honesty. Just come to us. Let's talk through this. So I think it's the affirmation of who they are and that I'm so glad we're together. We're part of the same family. It's a modeling, and it's just I think just trying to live life together out loud, right? My kids have seen all the sides of me. They've watched
Yeah.
me be pregnant at 43 years old, which was a huge shock. And like that wasn't easy, So they're seeing the emotions and they're seeing the physical toll it took on my body. And they're seeing the reality of having a newborn. And I mean, my kids have been an encouragement to me when I'm in tears, like in a obviously there's always this a healthy versus unhealthy. Like they're not my parent, but they have a lot to share and a lot to offer, and I need their encouragement too at times. And I just want them to know like we need each other. Like we need each other to get the house in order. We need each other to to just to be like right where God has given us to each other.
Yeah. The word that's coming to my mind is kind of osmosis.
Hmm.
It's I don't even know how to express that, but it's like pickling, being pickled, being pickled in love, or being pickled in
Mm,
God's love. I don't. Um,
mm.
When we spoke last time at the end of the conversation, you talked about epiphany moments, and
Mm-hmm.
clearly the moment when your daughter was having their panic attack,
Mm-hmm.
and your husband just said, let it be."
Mm-hmm.
That was one of those epiphany moments.
Mm-hmm.
Do other epiphany moments come to mind that you would like to share with the listeners?
I mean, sure. I think one that's just coming to mind right now, another time of recognizing that I was trying to take on too much, because again, you started the program out like I do have a full life, right? And yet there are ways to live this life where I am like trying to be all and like kind of be the savior for everybody that I get completely unhealthy. And then there's times when I can live this life and again be control what I can control, put good things in place. But there was a time I was having consistent pain on my chest, that I went to the ER because I thought I might be having a heart attack. And when I got there and when they did the test, it wasn't, it was anxiety. And what I realized is again, like there's a physical toll that takes on you when you try to be everything. We had a teenager at that stage living in our home who was not our child, but was just a dear friend and who was struggling deeply, to the point that she had even tried to commit suicide, at one point. And
Wow.
the pressure of trying to love her and care for her and again kind of control the situation that she would be safe was too much on me because I took it so I went all in. I tried to be her everything. And in that, I physically couldn't keep up. I mean, it physically took me to the hospital, but also I missed out on some of the cues from my other kids and needs they needed because I was so all in trying to fix and help this one. And so, and that's happened to me in other seasons of life where the birth mom of three of my kids was struggling. We were foster parents to them at the time, and we had gotten to know her well and really cared for her. And she was in a season of struggle years later after we had adopted the three. And I, again, tried to jump in and be kind of her savior and like fix it all and help her find a job and help her I just have had times where I go all in. I'm laser focused on one thing, and I put more emphasis on they need me versus what's a healthy way I can be helpful, but not at the expense of everything else in my life. And I just think the Lord has been gracious to for me to go through those experiences where every time it ends, it's I recognize, boy, I really overdid it there, or boy, that was I was I had the wrong perspective or maybe even the wrong motive of like I want to be the big helper. I want to be the savior. Um and so I think that there has the Lord has just taught me through struggle. Again, a hard fought lesson and hard fought lessons that continue to rise up in new ways that I have to like recognize and go, okay, you're leaning too far in this way. You're trying to be everybody's all in all, you know?
Yeah. Do you get do you get that a feeling with that when you're trying to do that? We talked about tension earlier
Hmm.
on. You talked about
Yeah.
anxiety at the
Yeah.
ER. Does the body
Oh yeah, the
give you
body
a
shares.
hint into
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're more anxious, you're more tired. I mean, it's like compassion fatigue essentially. It's you want to sleep more. Little things irritate you quicker. I mean, I remember like just like, oh, I can't handle anything else. So like normal things that would be maybe a frustration now felt like I was angry. Or normal things that would maybe make me sad, I just felt like I was weeping. You know, it's like that. It's depression. I mean, I've experienced depression and but it's when you're going too strong. We are just mere humans. Like I think that's just something the Lord keeps teaching me. You're a limited human. You can't do all and be all. and stop trying. Like, stop trying to be everything to everyone because you're no good at it. And I have called you to be you to these people. There are some specific people, my family, my church, people in my church, and also at work, that He has specifically called me to be more invested in, right? And if I'm trying to be everybody's all in all, I am not going to be able to invest in the places He's actually called me to invest and be the person He's actually called me to be. I think we talked last time too, even in leadership, something that I have really learned and have been thinking so much about is a gift of need. Um, I am so needy, and that is actually not a bad thing. I've learned and am learning that I've noticed this more in my leadership, that when I feel inadequate in leadership, when I feel insecure in leadership, when I'm struggling because I'm like, I don't know what to do, I can kind of respond in a couple ways. And there's one good way and a few ways that aren't so healthy. One way is when I start to go, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I got to prove that I know what I'm doing. I've got to figure it out. And I kind of puff myself up and I get uh, just a sense of like, I just gotta do it. And that isn't healthy because generally that's when I can bulldoze people or hurt people unintentionally, or it's again just this focus on I've got to prove myself. The other option is when I get so insecure in leadership, I don't know what I'm doing. And so now instead of doing anything, I just kind of like assume everybody knows better. And so I abdicate leadership and I go, you know better and you know better and I don't know anything. And so then I just step back and don't do anything. Those are the two extremes, and I've fallen into both. The healthy thing that I continue to try to learn and remember is to say, yes, I am limited. Yes, I do have needs. God, I need your help to lead. And God, I need my team. I need other people. I need to learn from others. Like, I need God and I need others. And there's this gift. And that's again goes back to when I feel the most grounded in life and leadership is when I'm very honest about who I am, my limitations, and also the worth that God's given me. Uh, and when then I'm walking in that place instead of trying to prove myself or like, oh, I can't do anything. Because the reality is both a prove itself mindset and a I can't do anything mindset are focused on self. And it just doesn't go well.
When you say self, what do you mean?
Yeah, like I mean, when my biggest concern is me, when my biggest concern is how do I look to somebody as opposed to are they getting the support they need from me as a leader, for example. When I'm thinking about, oh man, I hope they think I'm a good leader, instead of thinking, do they have what they need to succeed? How can I encourage them to grow? That's what I mean is when I'm inward focused, like the self, like I want to make myself look good, that's not good leadership. That's just selfishness.
Yeah, yeah. What what challenges your grounding?
Definitely like the normal things of life, busyness, when you just are go, 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 and you don't have margin. Because I don't have the time to process, to reflect, to think, to stop, right? I think I don't have time to do that. Um, Certainly just challenges my groundness when things are just hard. You know, when you are going through a season of either you're feeling heartbroken over something or you're just wrestling through an issue that you just don't know what to do and you are just weaker even, you're struggling. That challenges it. And when I just forget to go back to the Lord. Like for me, I have rhythms in my life where every morning, I should say most every morning, but my rhythm is get up at 5:30 in the morning and get my coffee and go spend time journaling, reading my Bible, praying, remembering what's true and getting grounded right there and then going about my day. when I have been staying up super late or when I am, when I don't have that rhythm, that challenges my grounding for sure because I'm just so quick to forget what really matters. I'm so quick to forget the priorities that I need to place. I just think we're always going to drift to what's easy. Like that's just a natural. And so we have to be intentional. I have to be intentional about what actually matters. And for me, starting and my day with Jesus and grounding my life around Jesus is what matters. And so I need to set up my life in a way that I'm doing that. And when I have him first, the rest flows. I'm a better mom. I'm a better wife. I'm a better leader because I'm not needing affirmation from everybody else to tell me that I'm doing okay. I'm trusting the Lord. I'm being real about my limitations and I'm just doing my best and and when I mess up, I'm acknowledging it. That's all those other things when we get out of whack, when life goes too fast, when we just get focused so much on ourselves that we forget kind of the big picture, that challenges my grounding.
One of the things you kind of touched on about the grounding earlier on seemed to be being about flexing,
Mm,
about flexibility and adaptability. I wonder if you can
mm.
share a little bit more on that.
Maybe give me a little bit more what you mean by that.
Yeah. Well, when we think about grounding, and I was thinking about trees.
Hmm.
The trees kind of bend. They bend with the wind, or they
Yeah.
get
Yep.
or the branches get snapped off. Right. That was the
Yeah.
metaphor that was kind of coming to mind. And
Hmm.
so I was wondering if you could talk into
Yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah, it's so interesting because, and I don't know if I'll get this whole study right, but there was a study done a while back, um, and it was done in the biosphere where they were building trees without any wind. Have you heard of this before?
No, I've not. No.
They were they were they were building trees or growing trees, um, and they were trying to make the perfect ecosystem for these trees so that they would grow strong. And so they didn't have any wind and they didn't have any rain. It was just like in this place. And what they found is that the trees grew, but their roots were not it wasn't they weren't actually as strong because the very thing that this whole research project was trying to avoid was all of the external stress on the trees, the wind, the rain. But that's actually the very thing that actually builds what is called stress bark. I think it's called stress bark that is stronger, that makes a stronger trunk. And actually, basically, I'm not doing this well, but the trees need the stress of the wind and the rain to actually build up and get stronger. And we are the same, I believe. We actually need to, it's the things that come at us it's not just all against us. We can use that to say, okay, it helps us identify our real priorities. It helps us identify where we need to change some things. It helps us identify, where we might be putting our hope. And so I think we don't have to fear the external and all the things that are going around because they can actually grow us stronger. Now we have to participate in that, right? We have to participate and be willing to learn through it. But if we can have attitudes, what I have found in my life is if I have the attitude of what can I learn through this? What is my takeaway? How could I have done that differently? Or what do I know now that I didn't know? That is what actually builds strength and resilience.
It makes sense, and uh, I interviewed a lady a couple of weeks ago, and it was all about learning most in the most challenging times,
Yeah.
and that's when and that kind of occurred to me in my old business that I didn't learn. I only learned in the tough times. I didn't learn much in
Hmm.
the easy parts.
Yeah.
So, how do you see? So, I was thinking. the something I heard about challenges happening for us, not to us.
Mm,
So it's our in service of our learning.
hmm.
Challenges are
Yeah,
in service of our learning. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I
that's
agree with that.
that's something. So how do you see the kind of the relationship between trauma and groundedness and thriving? What
Mm.
how do you see that the interplay between those?
Yeah, I mean, I have talked to a lot of people. I also have a podcast like you, so
Yeah,
I've gotten the opportunity to talk to a lot of people who have either experienced significant trauma, who've been in foster care, who've walked with this community. And one, I remember someone saying the only way to heal is to go through it. Like you have to kind of go back and understand what you have to walk through the pain sometimes to heal. Not saying we have to have trauma happen to us to heal. What I mean is like when we've experienced trauma and we want healing from that, we have to kind of walk back through and learn through that,
yeah.
kind of go
I
back
think
to that
in
place.
I think was it this wasn't Jackson, was it?
Mm-mm. No, I think go ahead.
Yeah, I interviewed a guy called Jackson Cust. I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his surname. Um, but he said the only way forward is back was the name of his
There you
book.
go. Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah.
you've got to go back and kind of re
Right. Kind of figure out, yeah, how that has impacted you and what it like. I mean, we do. I've interviewed folks on attachment, and like we all have an attachment style from how we were raised, and um, you just kind of it's like that self-awareness is so key in order to figure out like why do I respond this way? Why does that trigger me more? Why do I act this way when this happens specifically, but I don't when this other thing happens? Or why is this kind of personality type really bother me more than others? I just think there's some things is just because we're human and we're different, right? But there are some things it's like because maybe something that we went through in the past built up this kind of a block in us or like built a assumption or a belief that we are now having to recognize that is still impacting me today. And so I think it just goes back to again we have to learn like why are we the way that we are, and what is good about that and what is challenging and what are areas that we need to accept and be like this is actually a good thing about me. I just and or what are areas that are like, oh, this is an area that I'm getting stuck in. I think self-awareness is just so critical.
yeah. So obviously we're talking about this stuff at an adult level here.
Hmm.
What have you learned about the same topic, but looking at it from a child or a teen
Hmm.
perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think with my kids, something that I was always a big believer in is just really open conversation. I remember going to a conference when my son, who's now 19, was 10, and my husband and I adopted him from Guatemala uh, when he was only 10 months old. And I remember going to this conference and hearing a lady speak on how kids are curious about their past and their story. And he knew he was adopted. I mean, we had been open about all of that. But one of the things she said is at this age, like 8 to 10ish, you need to be asking more questions of them, so that they know it's safe to like talk to you and process whatever they feel, especially around their birth parents, because they might have this sense of like, I can't talk about that because I might hurt my mom or I might, make her feel a certain kind of way. And so I remember going back home. He was laying on the couch, and I just remember going up to him and say, "Hey, bud, I was just curious. Do you ever think about your birth mom?" And he immediately started tearing up and said, "All the time." And we just had a conversation where I could just kind of cry with him and be like, I'm so sorry. Like, I know, like, I know how hard that's got to be to not know what's going on and to wonder and to not, all these things. So for me, I with my kids, it's just a matter of like continuing to keep that open dialogue and let them know whatever you feel is okay. And you get to feel what you feel and you can wish things were different and you're not going to hurt my feelings. Like I get it. I wish you didn't have to experience loss also. I'm so glad you're in my family and I wish you didn't have to experience loss, right? Like there's this both and I think the more that we can just have open dialogue, open conversation, and our job as parents is to reinforce that and make it a very safe place and not me be like, well, why do you think about her? Because I'm here. Like that would have shut it down immediately. Um, so I think that those are areas that I really worked on, especially when they were little. It's just creating that open dialogue. And even now, with my older kids being like, what are your thoughts on this? Just showing them it's okay. Or some kids have felt this way. Do you ever feel that way? I just want my kids to feel safe to know that whatever they feel, they can share.
Yeah. What have you talked about the podcast, and I was going to mention that. What have been how how has doing those interviews, how has that helped you on
Oh,
your own journey?
oh, it's been incredibly helpful. Um, I haven't done as many interviews as you, Simon, because I know you've done like 500 or
Well,
something.
yeah,
But
yeah,
we're at 300, a little over 300 on the one podcast, the Forgotten podcast. And I mean, I feel like I raised my kids on that podcast. I got this incredible seat as host to ask questions and to learn. And so often I would, something I was maybe navigating at home, I wouldn't necessarily say, so my kid's dealing with this, but I'd say, so let's say a parent is experiencing this with their kid, what would you say? So it was like almost my own counseling session in some ways, because I was also a foster parent and who's our main audience on that particular podcast. And so I have learned so many things from my perspective has been open, my compassion for people has been deepened, my I just see things differently. And you hear stories over and over and over, you just begin to see how hard people have the hard things people have navigated, but also there's always hope. And to also experience how people have walked through the pain and have found healing and are now helping other people. I mean, this podcast is such a gift to me to be able to be on. It is incredibly emotional because you have the seat to be able to, someone is opening up to you their story and they're sharing about often some of the hardest things they've walked through. And there's many times I'll leave the podcast studio and I just have to take a minute, or that I've come out and I've just started crying because I'm like, it's hard. People are going through really hard things and yet there's hope. And that's what I've learned over and over and over. And it's been 10 years of this podcast now, and we're just charging forward. And it's just such an opportunity to grow.
yeah. I I've been I heard something a few months ago that I can't stop sharing, and it's from a foster mum talking about how she talks about trauma to older teens that
Mm,
she often fosters older teens, and she says, "Look, I'm gonna." She just lays it on the line. She says, "And because of her own trauma at the hands of her husband,
mm,
who nearly killed her, um, she has a certain amount of street cred, right, and credibility in this
mm,
area."
mm,
And so she says, "Look, I'm not going to deny your trauma, and I'm going to set it out for you, right? You've got a choice. The choice is whether you rise above it or whether you succumb to it."
mm,
And I just think that's so
mm.
empowering, that choice,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the clarity of setting the choice out.
yeah.
And I think about how how much relationship she must have built with the kids
Yeah.
that she's fostering to be able to say that.
Hmm. Right.
Because like if I went into a if I went into a Facebook group, right, for
Yeah.
adult adoptees where there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot of trauma
Mm.
bonding. There's a lot of trauma sharing.
Mm.
And if I said something like that in the
Yeah.
wrong place, they would they would come for me.
Mm.
They would come for me. And it and it's only right, only in inverted commas because they
Yeah.
haven't seen that choice. Nobody's set the choice out
Wow.
to them. You know,
Right.
it
Right. Because
seems
there's a difference, right, between many who have experienced this kind of trauma have been victims, absolute victims of trauma. But there's a difference between being a victim and then having a victim mindset where, like, I can't, you know, where you don't have a choice to overcome, right? And so that's what I hear from that is she's saying, you've been a victim. I acknowledge that. And it is so hard. And you don't have to continue to be a victim to what happened to you in your past.
and that's the hope. The hope is right there,
Hmm.
laid bare.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that feels like an appropriate place to bring it in? Unless, is there anything that you want to share that I've not asked you about?
No, I think that's great, Simon.
Okay. And as always, listeners, I've mentioned this recently, but we check out the show notes and there'll be links to Jamie's Forgotten Initiative and her socials, so you can check that out. And thank you so much. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoy talking with you, and I appreciate the way you think, Simon, and the questions you ask. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, listeners. We'll speak to you again very soon. Take care.